Hello, so this is another edition of Roof Talk, except we're not on the roof, we're on a deck on my backyard in America, my home America here. It's a beautiful backyard here. Sometimes there's foxes, sometimes there's snakes, deer, raccoons, all kinds of animals. Anyway, so like any other edition of Roof Talk, it's gonna be metaphysical, philosophical, and abstract. Usually I just want to get things talking, get things, get the juices flowing, because it's usually things that I'm thinking about, things that are blowing my mind right now at this particular time. Right now, it's the concept biocentrism. Now, I've heard of this term before, but never really looked up into it deeply. I still haven't. I'm gonna get the book. It's by the biologist Robert Lanza. Okay, so basically, I got this idea from the video that I saw. The video is from Athens, and the title is "The Death Dysfunction." Well, I didn't get this idea from the video. I started looking up to it after I saw that video, and I just have a lot of respect for this guy that's trying to challenge everything that science has been, teaching us or making us think. Okay, basically, let's go back a little bit. Basically, every time science makes like a paradigm shift, it changed the way people perceive the world completely, turns it upside down. One perfect example is when we found out the earth wasn't round. I mean, the earth was round instead of flat. That totally changed everyday common sense perception. If you told people 500 years ago that the earth was not flat, they think you're crazy. And Robert Lanza came up with this school of thought, this idea of biocentrism, and he thinks that biocentrism is, if it's true, and if it's true, then it's going to change the way we look at everything. Let me just go back a little bit more and talk about consciousness a little bit. So let me just it's hard to sketch this out because this idea it's pretty simple, but if you want to articulate to someone who's never heard of it, I hope you have, because it's not really a new idea. Let's go back to Kant. Since it's not a new idea, let's go back to Kant. The philosopher Kant, the German philosopher. Kant had an idea that sort of changed philosophy. He thinks that the reality, the world out there, you can't really know it. You can't really see the world. You can't really perceive the world apart from your mind. Before Kant, even today, if you talk to a person who would never think about consciousness and reality and things like that, you ask them, what's over there? They're like, okay, a tree. What color is the tree? It's green. They think that there's a world out there and that there's a world in here. And most people will not hesitate to believe that the tree really is green, that apart from our consciousness or apart from our minds, this tree exists, and this tree has its own properties, and its color and its shapes. It's all out there apart from our minds. Our minds have nothing to do with it. And the distinction between object out there and subject in here, self and the world, is pretty distinct for most people, right? Most people perceive the world like that. They look at the world and say, okay, what's out there? And that's just the way a house looks like, right? That's just the way a flower, whatever, the sky is blue. That's just the way it is, right? But Kant came in and said, it's funny because I'm talking about Kant, and I said let's back up, and because this idea is old. Again, if you talk to most people have never even heard of Kant, let alone this idea of what he called transcendental idealism. What this idea means is that you can never perceive objects out there in the world apart from your mind. What an object looks, feels, smells, feels like is totally dependent on the structure of your mind. So the mind, self, and the world, the object, the tree, is arise together, have this sort of this cycle, this infinite feedback loop, this cycle, this sort of this interdependent relationship, right? Green is not a property. Okay, there is a tree out there, says Kant, but the green is not in the tree. The green is in the mind. Okay, there is something called the time. Time exists, says Kant, because Kant wrote about time in his book, and he talked about space. It's very important. Let's keep in mind the time and space concept, because when I talk about Robert Lenza, I'm going to go back to this concept. Kant talked about 13 categories that our mind, our mental apparatus, as he calls it, is equipped with. He didn't know evolution, but today people will be like, okay, that's the result of evolution, because the evolution will have a certain mental apparatus that we're equipped with to perceive the world due to survival or reproduction, things like that. But Kant didn't have that knowledge, but he was correct. The mind does have an innate structure, a structure that determines how we perceive the world, not the other way around. Most people see the world coming into the mind, but Kant says no, it's more like it's going out, coming in, going out, coming in, going out, coming in. It's more like the mind dictates how we perceive the world. Okay, there's time, there's space. He said there's causality. He thinks cause and effect is also the result of the structure of the mind. Cause and effect. When you see the sun coming up and going down, when you see me punching a person and he falls back, he says that connection, that falling back. Okay, I punch you because you fall back. The sun raises and then comes down. That is that, and then we give definitions of why this cycle exists and why I punch him, he falls down. He thinks that does not really exist in reality, although there is a reality that something's going on there, but our mind makes it so that we can't really know it as it is. He calls it things in themselves. We can't really know these things in themselves. We can only know it as it's filtered through our consciousness and our minds. That's basically Kant's idea of transcendental idealism. Now, I've known this idea for a long time, and the reason why I say that is idea is still pretty new is because when I talk to people, most would never think like that. When I talked to my ex-girlfriend, she had a philosophy class and she asked me what this idea meant, and I tried to explain to her so many times. I said, when you see an apple, the redness and the roundness and even the way it tastes is felt, it exists in the mind, and she doesn't understand it. She said, what are you talking about? The apple is red and we can agree on it. And I said, no, we can't, even though we can probably agree on it, because me and you have the same brain, but it's not exactly the same. We're both humans, but if somehow I change the structure of your brain, your neurons, your visual cortex, you can perceive that apple as less red than me, and I'm probably sure that I'm sure that probably a lot of people perceive the same apple as redder or lighter, you know. But as I say, well, human beings have the same brain, but it's similar. But if you get a cat to perceive a dog to perceive that same apple, or listen to Beethoven, it's not going to hear Beethoven. It's going to hear noise. That's the best example, right? Structure of the brain determines the structure of reality. That's Kant. He doesn't deny that there's a reality out there. Now let's go back to our friend Robert Lenza, the biocentricist. Why does he call it biocentrism? He's a biologist. He thinks that, okay, if you talk to most scientists today, they're going to tell you that physics and chemistry are the main, sort of like the foundation of science. If you want to know reality, if you want to know how reality works, space, time, and all that stuff, just study physics, study chemistry, right? Those are the foundation. And then you go to biology, right? And then you go to psychology. But Robert Lenza says no. He says that all the physicists today, all the chemists, all the scientists that think that they're wrong. Why? Because space and time don't even exist, he said. Because scientists, since Einstein has been telling people, and the general theory of relativity, all that shit is derived from the fact that it's taken for granted that reality, okay, space, time are hard facts. They are hard stuff out there, independent of us, right? Kant says, well, when we perceive space and time, it goes through this feedback loop, right? The mind determines space and time. Okay, but again, he didn't deny that it's space and time. Einstein also read Kant. He would agree with that. He would agree that the mind, processes space and time differently than space and time itself. He said past, future, and present are an illusion. No matter how persistent it is, it's still an illusion. The distinction between past, present, and future. he realizes that there's a distinction between how we perceive reality and reality in itself. But he doesn't deny the fact that there is a reality out there. So ever since a very long time ago, people, even today, people, scientists are saying, okay, there is this world out there, the space and time out there. And then they're poking around and they're finding a lot of really weird stuff out there. Quantum mechanics, right? How does a particle go? You know, why does it? How is it that when you observe a particle, you know, the famous double slit experiment, you observe a particle and it changes its property, right? So that means that you can't really observe something, right? Because you can't really measure something. The process of measuring a particle changes its very own property. Scientists are baffled, and there's all of spooky things. Einstein calls it spooky. He says that the particle can be like simultaneously arise from this side of the world, and then there's another particle that's exactly the same could appear at the other side of the universe. How is that possible, right? Quantum mechanics is full of just things that are completely bizarre. Scientists don't even understand it. They try to link quantum mechanics with general theory of relativity. They try to like combine the both to come up with a theory of everything. That's the goal of Einstein. He's been doing it for like 20 years. He couldn't figure it out. And then quantum mechanics is starting to figure out with string theories. They still can't quite figure it out. Why is reality so fucking weird at the small quantum level? Quantum mechanics, why it's so weird, and how come we can't like combine that theory? We can't like incorporate quantum mechanics with the bigger the theories of general relativity. Both work very well on their own, but you can't have a theory of the whole universe without having one idea or one formula that combines everything. That is the goal of scientists today. But then Robert Lanza says you guys can never figure it out. Why can't you figure it out? Because space and time don't exist. Because there is not a reality out there. When I saw that video, the death dysfunction, what blew my mind was when the video was describing the way the reality really is, and then the whole screen turned to like this fuzzy thing, and it's like just codes, just information, just like the Matrix, like the static sound of the TV. He says, and the commentator on the documentary says, if you really want to imagine reality, this is the closest to what reality really looks like. It's homogeneous. It's all the same. It's just information. It's just static. If you want to perceive it, you want to imagine it, it's just static. It's all the same. There's no distinction between reality and the mind. There's no distinction between object and subject. All is the same. There's no out there inner. It's all an illusion. And this, I think, is even a step forward in thinking of Kant's transcendental idealism, because Kant is still trying to transcend something, right? Transcendental idealism means he's transcending reality. He's incorporating the mind to reality as a process. He's trying to transcend, right? But Robert Lanza says you don't even need to transcend. There's nothing to transcend. Why? Because reality is all one and the same, and that is information. That's kind of like the Matrix. But even in the Matrix, you can't really use the Matrix as an analogy anymore when you talk about biocentrism. Why? Because in the Matrix, you still wake up in a real reality versus a simulation. There's still a difference. It's a distinction between simulation and the real, right? There's still a distinction between the copy and the real, the virtual reality and the real world. But in Robert Lanza says, no, all is just one, just information. And the reason, sorry, I didn't get to why he called it biocentrism yet. Well, the reason why he called this idea biocentrism is because he thinks life is the center of the universe. He thinks life creates universe and not the other way around. If you ask anybody, common sense person, which comes first, reality or the universe or life? People will be like, okay, the universe comes first. If you talk to a fairly rational person, he'll be like, a secular person, he'll be like, okay, the universe is a result of some Big Bang and accident, and 13 billion years later, there's life. And it's all just an accident. Boom! Freak of nature. Human beings, intelligence. And Robert Lanza says, what are the chances of that? What are the chances of you sitting here, me sitting here telling you about this? That is absurd. He thinks that if you're going to wait around until intelligence comes out and then talk about it, then it's absurd. What are the chances of me sitting here on top of 13 billions of evolution, the intelligence is sitting on top of 13 billion years, after 13 billion years of boom, accident. Okay, human beings, okay, here, Frankie ain't talking about this. Anybody, any event in the universe, you're born. Have you ever wondered that question? Why are you you? Why are you born? You could have, the chances of you being not born is so much higher than being born. The chances of the universe forming as an accident is so much less than not forming at all, but you're here. He thinks that's absurd, right? If you think you're an accident that is that slim, then you are out of your mind. He thinks that it's very commonsensical for him to think the other way, that there's always this thing called consciousness. There's always this information that's permanent in the universe, that it's every possible scenario is occurred, it's ever gonna occur, it is there. Now you have to watch the video it explains how and why that is, and how, you know, even though everything in the universe and all the information exists already, every single possible world is there in the midst of this whole universe of information, he kind of explains why we still have this structured narrative, this linear narrative, this past, future, and present. But I'm not going to get into that because it's going to be too long of a video, and just watch it, do your own research. But the main idea is that life creates universe. There is consciousness first, and then there is, you know, okay, then where is the universe, right? Where is the universe? The universe is inside your brain, is inside your head, right? Then where, okay, fine, okay, so then, okay, let me talk about my fridge in my living room. Where is the fridge, the refrigerator, in relation to the universe, or relation to New York? I'm in my house in Maryland right now, and New York is 4 hours away. What is the relationship? Robert Lanza said that space is an illusion. Space doesn't exist. He said that space and time are stuff that we carry around inside our heads, the way that turtles carry around its shell. So turtles use the shell as a tool for survival, and so do we. We create this thing, this concept, this narrative called space and time in order to survive, in order to navigate around the world. But space and time, it doesn't exist in reality. So let me ask you again, where is the, okay, if I'm sitting over here, okay, and my fridge is in my house, and common sense will tell you, okay, if I want to get to my bridge, I have to walk there. So I'm traveling through space. But Robert Lanza's idea is that, no, you're not traveling through space. You're still, you know, swerving around in the information. When I'm walking around, I'm not really moving through space. I'm moving in, sort of, in my mind. Yeah, that's what it is. I'm moving through my mind. So the relation between the fridge and New York and the universe is, there's no distinction. There's no, I shouldn't say distinction. There is a distinction. There is no spatial distinction. It's all an illusion, right? It's all in the head, right? So there sort of everything is just kind of, you know, is one. So if you think this idea is sort of familiar, it's because it's closer to the Hindus' idea of the Brahma, everything being one, all that stuff, the eternal self, universe, all one. It's sort of like that idea. But that's why I said this idea is not new. But it's just like this is the first time a legit scientist has been calling out on people who are not thinking this way, and he's trying to prove this to be right. And yeah, so the reason, okay, you might say that, okay, when I'm looking at my fridge, okay, when I'm looking at my fridge in my living room, I'm not looking at it right now. Does that mean that it doesn't exist? If you're a biocentricist, Robert Lanza would tell you that no, it doesn't exist. Why? Because everything is just probabilities. If you study quantum mechanics, you know that, you know, matter is just empty space. Matter is just, you know, the deep structure of matter. It's just information. It's just, you know, probabilities. You know, there's potential for, you know, for certain things, but it's always just a potential until consciousness perceives it. Right? So basically, if I don't go to that fridge, if I don't open my eyes and perceive the fridge, in a way, and not in a way, in biocentrism's way, it doesn't exist at all. Because if all is just information, right? The particles, for the phrase doesn't collapse until someone perceives it. And then you ask again the question, well, it's over there. Well, you know, it's in the house. You know, you gotta open the door and to go in. It's over there. But then again, that over there is a spatial illusion. There is no over there. It's all just in your mind. It's sort of like you're just this being that's swerving around the information. For somehow you have this subjective consciousness within this swerving of information that makes you think that you're walking towards your fridge, but all is just information collapsing, or particles collapsing against each other, arising out of perceptions and interactions, and it's all just a process of information. And I think we're going back to that state of information with the internet, with virtual reality, right? The world is becoming more information-like, more mental, right? So I think I think we are in the midst of some sort of paradigm shift. If you look at the past 10-20 years, what is the hottest subject of study is the human brain. Now we know more about the human brain than ever before, and the neuroscientists, the neuroscience community has been coming out with so much more information that people can't catch up anymore. We're reaching that point where we are really unraveling the brain. And if you unravel the brain, you know, to a point where we find out that everything's in the brain, then that is really a huge mindfuck. So I want to make this last couple points about why I'm finding this idea very exciting. As you know, I've been talking about in my previous videos about the mind and body distinction, right? I always talk about how I'm struggling with being physical and being mental. I'm struggling with wanting to have sex and wanting to be like intellectual and be, or like create and stuff like that. And I think everyone goes through that struggle, the mind-body dichotomy, you know, or the distinction, just any kind of dichotomy, the world, you, self, others, all the dichotomy will be erased if this turned out to be true, right? When I work out, I don't have to be like, oh shit, I'm gonna go work out right now, I'm building some muscles, and that's gonna go against what I believe to be, you know, higher mental, more abstract creative activities. It's all the same. When I'm working out, when I'm walking towards the gym and squatting, I'm doing it in my fucking head. When I get big, my muscles, it's not going to take away or subtract from my intellectual creative thinking. My film editing is not going to, you know, suffer, right? Because it's all the same. Because, you know, this muscle right here that I'm building, it's sort of, you know, it's all just mental. It's all information, changes of information, you know, alteration of information. I'm getting bigger, but I'm getting bigger in my head. If you start to think this way, dude, man, it's pretty cool, because you realize that, you know, you're creating everything. You feel a lot more creative. You feel a lot more that the whole universe is sort of like your own creation, right? Because you do create your own universe according to biocentrism. Life is the center of the universe. You are the center of the universe. Consciousness is the center of the universe. Consciousness gives rise to reality. Reality is consciousness. Universe is consciousness. And let me give you just an example I just thought of. Why do you think that when people take psychedelics, when they're high on LSD or mushrooms, it's almost like a default mode to see space, right? If you take a lot of psychedelics, almost everyone will tell you, dude, I tripped out, I went to space. I saw a universe, I saw, like, why? Maybe it's because space has always been just, you know, existent in our heads. The reason why every time we trip out and go into space is because space has always just been in our head. We just sort of accessed it. So all this time that you're studying space, that's why no wonder the scientists feel so baffled, because they're studying the things that are inside their minds. Einstein, general relativity, he's peeking in his own mind. Of course quantum mechanics can have problems. You're using your mind to study your own mind. Of course you're going to run into problems. The mind is a freaky, spookish thing. Of course Einstein is going to be like, oh, the reality is so weird. It's because the mind is weird. Anyway, so sorry it's such a long video, but I don't really know that much about it yet, but I'm gonna provide links for you guys to do research on. I'm gonna read the book Biocentrism, and I'm gonna, you know, hopefully post more videos and post on Facebook about this kind of stuff, because it's really interesting. And yeah.